Hi, I'm Jimbo Paris, and you are listening to The Jimbo Paris Show. All right. How's it going, everyone? This is Jimbo Paris here. Welcome to The Jimbo Paris Show. And today we have Kelly Lynn, actor, comedian, speaker. She is an amazing author, and she's writing a great book. Well, she's written a great book, My Husband Is Not a Rainbow. And we're going to hear about what she has to say about grief, because this is a serious topic. And I'm interested to know what she's been through and how she has overcome this in the best of ways to motivate other people. Right. Let's see her now. How's it going?
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. I have to say first that I love your shirt. It's so colorful.
Thank you. I love your shirt as well. I like pink. Pink is like my second favorite color.
What's your first? What's your first favorite?
The one you're wearing over yourself, black.
Okay. My favorite is green.
All right. All right. So I'm very interested to know about you. So can you kind of give me a bit of a brief summary of who you are, what you're about, and what your message is?
Absolutely. So my name is Kelly Lynn, as you said, and I'm originally from Massachusetts, small town in Massachusetts. And ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be an actor, a comedian. My dream was always to be on Saturday Night Live, right? And be one of the cast members on Saturday Night Live. I've always loved comedy. So I moved to New York City when I was 18, and I went to college there at Adelphi University. And I was a theater major. I was a performing arts major and graduated with a BFA in theater. And that was in 1994 when I graduated, a long time ago. And while I was there living in New York, I ended up staying in the New York City area for over 25 years. I just loved it there. And I did become an actor, and I did some stand-up comedy and, did the comedy clubs and kind of had the typical life of a struggling performer that you see in LA and New York City all the time. And I was dating people, and in the late 90s, I met a man named Don Shepard, and we met in a very strange way. He was living in Florida at the time, and he was a paramedic in Florida. And I logged on to this music chat room that was very popular back in the 90s. This is back in the days of America Online. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but that's how old it was. And that's how you got online on the internet. And so there was a chat room that was a music chat room, and you would go in there and it was like a trivia room, and you would guess the lyrics to 1980s songs. And so I used to do that after a hard day at work. I was working as a professor teaching acting at Adelphi after I graduated at the time. And I logged on there one night and there was nobody in the room. Usually there was 40 or 50 people in that chat room to play that game. And this night there was no one in there at all, just me and this other guy. So we started talking and typing back and forth. And 5 hours later, we were still talking and laughing. And I felt like I knew him forever, even though we had just met. So fast forward, we kept talking every night almost. We would meet online and talk. And it turned into a beautiful friendship. And then about 3 years later, we met in person. He flew to New York City to meet me, and we fell in love. Fast forward another few years, and he moved to my area. I was then living in New Jersey, and he proposed. We got married in 2006, and we were very happy. We were just starting our lives together. He was a paramedic, and I was a professor at a university. And, we had rented an apartment, sharing a crappy car and just kind of struggling through life, hadn't bought a house yet, didn't have a chance to have kids yet or any of that stuff that you do, that most people do when they get married. It was a young marriage and we were just starting out. And one day he left for work and he never came home. And they found him collapsed on the floor. He had a massive heart attack. He was 46 years old and he had zero health issues, not that we knew of anyway. No symptoms, no warning of any kind. Just when I tell you it was a complete shock, it was the biggest shock of my life that he died. They say he died instantly. They took him by ambulance to the ER, but he was pretty gone as soon as he collapsed, is what they said. And my life changed in an instant. Because I was a comedian and an actor and a writer already, I kind of naturally started thinking, what am I going to do with this? This is awful. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And eventually I started to just write. I started to write down my feelings. I started to write down my thoughts. I started to make blogs and Facebook posts and things like that. And that turned into a book eventually about the loss and about the brutal honesty of it and what it's really like to lose a spouse or a partner smack in the middle of your life or when you're just getting started together. And that turned into doing some speaking engagements for the widowed community. I've gotten very involved with the widowed community and helping others through loss. And that turned into a TED Talk. And the TED Talk has gone viral. It has 2 million views and counting. And the message of the TED Talk, you asked about my message. I have a few messages, but the main one of the TED Talk and some in the book is about how we treat people who are going through the loss of someone to death, how we treat them, how we talk to them, the messages we send them. We live in a society that tells people to get over it. We live in a society that tells people to move on. And, put that over there. That makes me uncomfortable. I don't want to talk about that. And I think that's horrible. I think that's a horrible way to treat the people that we love who have died. And I think it's a horrible way to treat those who are still alive who are honoring those people. So in my TED Talk, I speak about a different way to talk to people and a different way to change that message that we're sending people who have lost somebody, because we are all going to go through it. Every single one of us, we don't get out of this thing alive. So we're all going to lose people that we love. And if we can get through that in a kinder way and be kinder to each other, I think it'll be a lot easier to get through.
How do we become kinder to each other?
That's a good question. How do we become kinder? I think sometimes people are trying to be kind. They just don't know what to say. They feel awkward and they don't know what to say, so they say the wrong thing. Or they say something that's hurtful to the other person, but they don't always mean to be hurtful. So that's a start, is, a lot of people are trying to be kind, and that's great. But some people they've just had these messages ingrained in them from society from day one that, when someone dies, you move on from that. You put that over there. That's in the past. Don't talk about that person. And that's the message that we need to change. We need to be kinder to people by not judging them so harshly, by not judging somebody because they aren't ready to date yet after, their husband or wife dies, or not judging them because they don't want to get rid of that piece of clothing that's important to them because that's all they have left of that person. Not judging people, I think, is the simplest answer to how to be kinder, is to just listen more and try not to judge something that, you don't really know what it's like until you're going through it yourself.
How are you kinder to yourself when you first had to deal with loss?
That takes a lot of practice. It's really hard to be kind to yourself. I think for all of us, it's hard to be kind to ourselves sometimes. I think a lot of us are, we critique ourselves a lot and we are not always kind to ourselves. So it takes practice to be kind to yourself. And I try my best to, when I was having a lot of trouble in the beginning after the loss about being kind to myself, what I used to do is I used to tell myself, what would my husband tell me? What would Don have said in this moment? Because he was the kindest person I ever knew. He was very kind to everybody, just a stranger on the street. He would talk to them. He would give you the shirt off his back. He was such a kind person. And that's partly what attracted me to him in the first place. And so I would ask myself, what would Don tell me right now? Don would not want me to be mean to myself. He would not want me to, be this hard on myself. I'm going through something really hard and really horrible, and I need to be kinder. And so I would try and put his voice in my head in the beginning when I was having trouble, and I would ask myself what he would say to me. And what he would say to me is, Kelly, relax, you're doing okay. Don't be so hard on yourself. You're going to get through this.
How did you get through this? This is very tough to deal with.
It really is. It's really tough to deal with. So there's several ways to get through it. And honestly, I'm still getting through it. It's been a long time. This happened in July of 2011 is when my husband's sudden death was. So it's been 10 years. And to be honest with you, it's an everyday thing. You don't get over something like this. You don't move on from something like this. I like to say you move with it and you move through it, because you carry that person with you forever. It's not like a divorce. It's not, it's when you wake up and all of a sudden your person's not there anymore, you still love them. You still want to be with them. And that love doesn't go away. So when someone dies that you're, married to or living with, whether you're a partner or a spouse to that person, that love doesn't go anywhere. It stays there. It just changes form. It changes shape, and the relationship is still there. It's still alive. Death ends a life, not a relationship. So I think there's many, many ways to get through this. And one way is to realize that the relationship still exists. And I try and make Don a big part of my life every day. I talk to him still, I feel like he's part of my team. He's like somebody that's kind of rooting me on, from over there, from spirit world or wherever he is. And that helps me, that comforts me. A big way that I've gotten through it is meeting a lot of other people going through the same thing. When you're going through something, whatever it is, and you meet other friends that are going through that too, it is a lifesaver. I have so many friends now in the widowed community, and so many friends that have also been through different types of loss and traumas and things like that. And it's just so amazing to be friends with these strong, wonderful people that have been through so much. And, you see somebody like that and you say, oh, if she can do it or if he can do it, I can do it too. And so that's a really big part of it. And then just writing about it, writing my feelings down, sharing that with people. I told myself very early on that I could either let the pain kill me or I could create something from the pain. And that's really how I feel about it as a creative person, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to sit and write all the time or to create something out of it, because it hurt and I didn't always want to go there, because it was very emotional. But it really helps, and it helps other people too when they read it and they say, oh, this is exactly how I feel, and nobody ever worded it that way, and this is so great that you wrote this, and you're helping me, and that kind of stuff. So it's really, when you start to heal, you can help other people heal.
Speaking of other people, how did you find the widow community?
Well, that's a good question also. A lot of it I found online. When I became widowed, I was 39 years old, and I was married 4.5 years, and I did not know what to do with myself. It was like 1 second I had a husband, I had this whole life, we had friends, we went out with those friends, we had this whole life, this whole routine, and all of a sudden all that was gone. And so I didn't know what to do. I didn't know, everything changed in an instant, and I had no idea what to do. So after work each night, I would sit down at my computer in our bedroom and I would just go online because I was bored. I was lonely. I couldn't sleep. I had insomnia and I was grieving. And I'd go on Facebook a lot and, social media and stuff like that. And I would find or look for widow groups, groups that had other widowed people in there talking and chatting. And I found that and started talking and chatting in there with these other people that were going through the same thing. And a lot of nights I'd be up till 2, 3 in the morning just chatting with these people. And then I just started kind of writing on my Facebook page, like whatever I was feeling, whatever it was, I would just put it out there. And people started to appreciate that, I think, my brutal honesty about, this is terrible. This is horrible. I can't believe how hard this is. And, is this ever going to get better? And I would just put it out there. I wouldn't sugarcoat it at all. And so people really started to say, this is great, how honest you're being. And I feel like I can't be that honest, online in public like that. So thank you for being that honest. And I kind of started to collect other people going through loss almost accidentally. They started sort of coming to me, sending me private messages, sending me emails, and before you know it, I had a community of people that I became friends with. And from that, we ended up going to this retreat. I guess that's the word for it, a retreat. And it's called Camp Widow, and it's put on by Soaring Spirits International, which is an amazing nonprofit organization that basically connects widowed people worldwide. And it's started by a widow named Michelle Hernandez. And it's a 3-day retreat in different parts of the country and in other countries now as well. And I became a presenter there, and I gave a comedic presentation about grief and loss, and I still do that every year at Camp Widow. And so there I met hundreds of other widowed people, because there's, anywhere from 300 to 500 attendees at Camp Widow. And so I met so many people there. And now when I go back 10 years later, I'm presenting, but I'm also going back to see my friends. It becomes like a reunion, and these people not only grieve with you, but they help you through life and the things that happen after the losses, years later, when you're starting to piece your life back together again and starting to figure out, what do I want to do now? What do I want to be? Because you're really starting over with this type of loss. It's like a blank slate is handed to you. And at first you don't want to start over, but you have no choice. And so eventually you start to figure out, what am I going to do now with my life?
And what did you do with your life?
Well, This is a lot of it. I feel like it's my mission now to help other people through loss and through grieving. And I love speaking to widowed people. I love speaking to anyone going through a loss. I love giving them hope, coming at it with a little bit of humor. I love giving my comedic presentation at Camp Widow and at other places. I've done it in comedy clubs and things like that as well. And basically, it's not about making fun of the death itself, because that's not funny. But what is funny is everything that happens afterwards. There's so many things that happen after someone dies that are funny, that are comedic. The comments people make to you when they're trying to help. That aren't always helpful. Some of those comments can be funny or comedic. The red tape issues you have to go through when someone dies. A small example is, I had to call the phone company and change my phone plan because I had a phone plan with my husband. We had a phone plan together. Our cell phone plan was together. And I had to call them and say, my husband just died. It's now just me. And I just need to change the phone plan from the couples plan or family plan to just me. And they said, that's fine. We can help you with that, ma'am, but we're going to need to speak with the person whose name is on the account. And I said, yeah, well, that's Don Shepard, and you can't talk to him because he's dead. And they just kept repeating it. They just kept saying, well, we understand that, and we're so sorry for your loss, but we do need to speak with the man whose name is on that account in order to authorize this transaction. And they literally kept saying that. It was like they were, robots, and they had this script and they couldn't go beyond the script to see that I was telling them, you cannot talk to him. I wish you could. So there's a lot of humor in things like that happen after the death that are just so ridiculous that you have to make fun of them.
So I could see how you were phrasing before how it's not about sort of moving on, it's moving with, and this is sort of how you moved with it.
Yes. Moving with and moving through it, moving through the loss, because, you can't move on from loving someone.
Right.
You move with it, and it's up to you in the end after that loss, how you carry that person with you, how you carry them forward, and how you bring them into your life. And I try and look at it as continuing a relationship. The relationship has just changed, to a very different relationship than what I had originally pictured.
And would you consider honesty one of your greatest strengths?
I would say yes, because so many people today are not honest. So many people don't speak in honesty because they're either afraid to, or they feel like they can't, or they're just too concerned with what people are going to think about them if they do. So I've never had a problem with being honest. I've always kind of thought, if I'm not going to be 100% honest, then why talk about it at all? What good is it going to do anybody if I'm not brutally honest about this, especially something like death and grieving, because it's so important.
And why is it important to discuss these things with other people?
Because we're all going to go through it. Every single one of us is going to go through this, and we're going to go through it more than once. I mean, if you love other human beings, you're going to lose them, and they're going to die. And if we don't talk about it, if we pretend it's not happening, it's going to be a lot harder when that happens to you. And when you don't deal with it, when you don't cope with it, and when you don't sit with those feelings and emotions that you're having around that, it's not good. It sits inside there and it comes out in not good ways, it comes out in rage or anger, or too much drinking, or too much too much of anything that's not good. It can come out in various ways that are not healthy. So it's really important to talk about it, and to, if you can, seek support groups, other people that are also going through loss, or, a grief counselor. I saw a grief counselor for about 3 years after Dawn died, and it was so helpful. And she just let me talk. She didn't do anything extraordinary except listen and let me talk, let me get out what I wanted to say, and not judge me.
And when you started what was sort of the first step to writing your first book?
The first step was the day he died. I went to my computer and I just found myself furiously typing. And my mom walked in the room and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I don't know. But it's helping." I was just typing so fast, and I was writing down all my feelings and writing about Dawn. And I didn't know what I was writing at the time, but then the next day I said, "I think this is my eulogy for him." That's what I was writing. And I ended up doing the eulogy at the funeral and speaking about my husband, because I felt like he deserved that. He was an amazing person and he deserved to be spoken about by me. And so I did that. And then that turned into just continuously writing, because it helped. It made me feel better when I started to write. And when I got it down on either paper or, online or in a blog. And then I started a blog called RIP, The Life I Knew, Rest in Peace, The Life I Knew. And because it's not really just the death of a person, it's the death of that life. That life that you knew is gone and you have to start over. And I started writing in there, and then that turned into the book eventually. It took a long time. The book came out in 2017. And he died in 2011. So it took quite a while to write it and to finish it. And the whole process took a long time, but it was definitely worth it.
I'm just curious, are you self-published?
Yes. And it's on Amazon, but yes, it's self-published.
Was there an intentional reason for this?
So there was a few reasons, but the main reason was that I did not want to be edited. I didn't want some book person to come in and say, we like this and we'll publish it for you, but you have to take this out and you have to edit this, and it's too long, and there's too many words. And I wanted to tell it the way I wanted to tell it, 100%. And I didn't want anybody messing with that, because it was so important to me to have that brutal honesty that I talked about earlier. And that's the style of the book. It's very free forming. It's different styles, and it's very journal-like. And so I wanted to keep that. That was important.
And then your other book, My Husband Is Not a Rainbow. What relation does that book have to?
That is the book. That's the book that I'm talking about. Do you want to see how big it is? It's huge.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a very large book. Yeah, that is the book. I've had my a couple of grief stories published in the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, and things like that. But My Husband Is Not a Rainbow. It is my big book. The subtitle is The Brutally Awful, Hilarious Truth About Life, Love, Grief, and Loss.
Okay. And is there any significance of the rainbow? Maybe I'm looking too deep into this, but
no, you're not looking. There's always significance. There's a story behind it, and it's basically one of my husband's friends, who was working with him at a volunteer job that he had. My husband was very, very much in love with animals. He loved cats. He loved dogs. He loved all animals, and he wanted to rescue all of them. And we had 2 cats together. I still have them 10 years later. And we adopted them together from a rescue shelter. And one of them is 22 years old now, and he's still alive. So, but Don was very much in love with animals. And so on his days off from EMS, he would spend his time at an animal shelter volunteering. And he was volunteering with the pet adoptions. And that's where he has heart attack. So the woman that volunteered with him and that ran that adoption center was helping me. After he died, she was helping me with my cats and feeding them and stuff like that. And she came over one day, and it was after his funeral, and she said, "Kelly, I have to tell you this amazing story." And she told me how she was driving down the street in New Jersey the day of Don's funeral. And you have to understand, before I continue, that my husband, Don, hated New Jersey. He moved there for me, but he was from Florida, and he never liked New Jersey, never liked it at all. Thought it was just, didn't like the state, didn't like anything about it. And so she told me that she was driving and she was going to his funeral, and she said, "I just started crying because I was so upset. My friend was dead, and I just started crying, and all of a sudden it started raining, and then the sun came out." And she said, "And I saw the most miraculous thing in the sky." She said, "Kelly, I saw a rainbow. It was this big, bright rainbow." And she said, and that was your husband. That was Don. He was a rainbow, and he was looking at me, and he was saying, "Don't cry, Mary, don't cry." And when she told me this, for some reason, I found it so funny. I was trying not to laugh, like, at her. And I don't know why I found it so funny, but I think the main reason is because my husband, I do believe in signs, but my husband would never come back as a rainbow. And I just found it so funny that she thought the rainbow was my husband instead of just a rainbow. He would come back as like a guitar solo in an Aerosmith song. That's the kind of person he was. You know, he loved rock and roll. He loved playing guitar. That's what he would come back as, not a rainbow, especially not in New Jersey. He would never come back as a rainbow in New Jersey. He would not give New Jersey the satisfaction of his beauty in the sky. It just wouldn't happen. So that joke became an ongoing sort of running joke about my husband is not a rainbow. And I started talking about it in comedy clubs, and it got huge laughs. And just the idea of, you know, this man who died and him being a rainbow and why he isn't. And it became this almost revolution. My widowed friends started sending me pictures. Like when they saw an actual rainbow, they would take a picture of it wherever they were in the world, and they would post it to me on my social media, or they would email it to me, and they would say, "Look, I saw Dawn in Nebraska yesterday." And it became this ongoing joke that still continues to this day. I get rainbow pictures constantly from everybody. And it's hilarious because every time that happens, it makes me think of him and it makes me smile. So because he's not a rainbow, every time I see rainbows, I think of him.
And you have some notoriety as well. You have a viral video. Am I not correct?
I do. I have a couple. I have the TED Talk went viral about grief and loss. That has a couple million views. But I think you're talking about McFallen, which is basically a video I did years ago with Opie and Anthony, the Opie and Anthony show. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They were pretty big on, on radio, Sirius XM and all that stuff. But Opie had his own YouTube channel. He still does, called Opie Radio. And he featured me in a bunch of videos on that channel and comedy videos. And one of the videos we did, it was just me going into a McDonald's, ordering the McLobster, because at the time McDonald's actually had a McLobster on their menu. And we thought that was hysterical that they would be serving lobster at McDonald's and calling it McLobster. So I went into a McDonald's and he filmed me. And I basically was, asking for the McLobster and they didn't have it. And I got upset and I started crying and saying, I'm having a party. It's a seafood party. What am I going to do? And then on the way out of the McDonald's, I purposely, but accidentally trip and fall and land on the floor, all my food everywhere. And I say, oh, I've McFallen. And it went viral. The last part of that video, somebody sort of spliced it, like some 16-year-old kid on Vine spliced the end of that video where I fall down and say I've McFallen, and he put it on his own page, didn't put our name on it, didn't give us credit, and his version of it went viral. So it was one of those things where the video went famous, but I didn't get famous, if that makes sense, because my name was not attached to it anywhere. But it blew up, and it blew up all over the internet, and it went crazy, crazy popular. Crazy
well, your
popular.
post was still there, though.
It's so still there. Oh yeah, millions and millions of views, and I mean, I got some notoriety out of it, but some 16-year-old kid somewhere made probably a lot of money off that video. That's how the internet works, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Doesn't always go in your favor, but it was a random funny thing. And yeah, it went completely crazy viral on me.
And I'm also assuming in McDonald's you didn't take any of those ketchup packets, right?
I did not take any ketchup packets, no.
Why do you hate ketchup?
I don't know. It's just gross. And I don't know, it looks like blood. It looks nasty and it tastes nasty to me. And I don't like when you can see it on like the corners of people's mouths when they're eating, and like you can see the little bits of ketchup, or you can see it coming out of the burger. It grosses me out so much. Same thing with mayonnaise. I love mayonnaise, like the taste, but if I see it, I get grossed out and then I can't eat it. I'm very strange when it comes to food.
More of a mustard person?
A little bit, but same thing there. I don't like condiments, I think. You can see them hanging out of things. It's disturbing. Nobody wants to see that.
So, so obviously, you definitely have quite the personality, but how did you sort of use that to transform other people's lives? You must have been seen as sort of a role model to a lot of these other struggling people as well.
Yeah, so, that's what's so cool about doing the comedic presentations that I give at Camp Widow and some other places I've done them. When I perform for an audience that's specifically made up of people that have been through a loss or trauma of some kind, and I can make them laugh, there's no feeling better than that. I mean, the feeling of having somebody come up to you after your performance and tell you, that's the first time I've laughed since my wife died of cancer, or that's the first time I've laughed since my husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, or whatever it is. It's incredible. It's an incredible feeling. And people will tell me, I didn't think I could laugh again. Like I wasn't sure that I'd ever laugh again because, after I lost my person, I didn't feel like laughing, and I felt guilty for laughing. And so to be able to be responsible for someone's first laugh after this tremendous loss, and for them to realize that they will laugh again and they will feel joy again, and they will miss their person forever. It's both, it's not one or the other. It's joy and sadness, they go together. Pain and comedy, they go together. They're like siblings. They're right next to each other. And it's very true. That's why you see so many comedians who are, a lot of comedians are very depressed people, or very people that have been through a lot of trauma, and that's their form of therapy, is getting up on stage and making it funny. I call it finding the funny inside the pain, because that's what it is to me.
Excellent, excellent. And I definitely am very interested in your methodology, and kind of I want to take a glance at your website to see sort of how you structure a lot of those things. So,
Yeah.
technical team, please bring up the website. I'd love to see it. And while we wait for the website, I'm just kind of interested to know, how do you deliver information? Do you have a blog? What do you use really?
Yeah, I do have a blog. It's on the website. The website is kellylynnlife.com. So my blog is on the website. And then I have my book, I have the TED Talk, all of that is on the website. And I'm a pretty big Facebook
There we go.
person.
Yes.
There it is. That's the homepage. So yeah, it's all there. It's all kind of all the different categories, the podcasts I've been on, and the book. There's a book section, and there's videos of my stand up, and all, it's all there pretty much.
Okay, so when people look at your website, what's the first thing that they should usually refer to when they want to begin going into your community?
You mean if they want to find out about the lost community?
Yes, so sort of the blog, the press, like how do people begin to learn about the messages and your teachings?
So I would say the first thing they should do is just scroll down like you just did and click on the TED Talk, because that's really my message. The TED Talk's right there on the left. And they could watch that. It's about 15 minutes long, and that pretty much tells my story, my entire story, and the messages that I'm trying to send. It's all in that talk.
Excellent, excellent. And then you have a blog as well. So how often do you post on that blog? And do you sort of use it as your own, biography in a way?
Sometimes I do. The website you're looking at now is pretty brand new, so I haven't finished getting the older blog posts over to it quite yet, but they'll be over there soon. But yeah, I do post on it pretty regularly. I also post on the Soaring Spirits also has a blog. It's called Widow's Voice, and they have a different widowed person posting each day of the week. So I post every Friday on their Widow's Voice blog as well. But yes, the blog is definitely a place where I post things, and also Facebook is a place where I post things often as well.
Okay. And currently, right now, when it comes to your oldest post, which one is your favorite one, or the one that is most important to you?
I would say there's a post in there, and I forgive me for not being able to tell you exactly where to click to find it, but I know it's in there. It's called 25 Things to Never Say to a Widow. And it's one of my favorites because it's, all those comments that people say to widowed people when they lose someone. I'll give you an example, like, he's in a better place. That people say that all the time. He's in a better place, or she's in a better place, when they die. And that particular blog, I put the 25 comments that I dislike the most, and then I put what I wish I could have said in return back, but didn't say in return because, it probably wouldn't have been very nice. But, the replies I wish I could have given to those comments. He's in a better place. Okay, if you like that place so much, let's send you there. I'll help you pack. And I'll take my husband back. How about you go there? We'll get you a one-way ticket to this better place, and I'll take my husband back. So it's kind of fun to play around with the comments that you get and come up with comebacks for them. And
Right.
other widowed people find that hysterical because it's therapy for them because, they're also saying, yes, that people have said that to me too, and I can't stand it. And so they laugh so hard when they hear, that they're not alone in those feelings.
Great, great. And when it comes to, things like Hire Kelly, I'm wondering, do you offer one-on-one coaching or group coaching or
Yes,
any sort? Oh, okay.
I do. And I believe that is under the Hire Kelly page. There's a section that says grief coaching. So yes, I do offer one-on-one. Um, you know, I basically just talk to people like I said earlier about my own grief counselor. She just let me talk and listened and validated what I had to say and didn't judge me and gave me a safe space to do that because a lot of times it's just about you just need to retell your story over and over again until you get sick of yourself, until you're ready to kind of shift to the next place of the grief. Um, and eventually it gets easier, but it takes a long time. And a lot of it is just about kind of processing through it and processing through um, the loss and all the thoughts you're having and doing that with someone who, doesn't make you feel like you need to be fixed and who doesn't make you feel like you're crazy. So yeah, I talk to a lot of other widowed people mostly, but also just people going through loss. But it is mostly widowed people that reach out to me to talk.
What is one of your best client success stories?
Wow, that's a good question. So for me, the definition of success is when it comes to a grieving person is somebody that didn't think they were going to make it out of this, didn't see a reason to continue living. And then not only did they continue living, but they're very, very happy. They found joy. They're able to live a life that they're proud of again and rebuild a life for themselves and carry that person with them into that life in the way that they want. Remember that person, honor that person, honoring that love story and moving into whatever their future holds. And for everybody, it doesn't necessarily mean another relationship. It could mean that, but it could also be things like going back to college, at age, 45 or 50, or, finishing nursing school or raising 5 kids by yourself after, your spouse's death, things like that. So I would say my biggest success story was a woman that was very much not wanting to live when I was speaking with her. And it took a very, very long time of speaking with her for her to come to a place where she not only wanted to live, but she was excited about her life again and um, ended up getting engaged to met a new man, got engaged, and it was quite a few years later, and is now remarried, and still her late husband that died is a big part of her life, and yet she's very, very happy, and she never saw that for herself.
Okay. That's good to know. Okay, so she sort of found a way to move forward through it all.
Yeah, and she really created a life for herself. That's what it's about. I mean, her and her husband had a business together. And so when he died, she had to leave that business, or she decided to leave that business and sell. They had like a store together, and she decided to sell it and then do something completely different. And she always liked to cook. So she ended up becoming like a head chef in a restaurant. and she has like a completely different life than she ever saw for herself. She never saw any of that happening in her other life, with her husband that died. But that's what's so incredible about it, is that, when you rebuild your own life piece by piece, you start to ask yourself questions like, well, what do I want to do now? Because a lot of times the person you become after that loss isn't the same as the person that you were, because that kind of loss changes you. It changes you forever in so many ways. And if you're lucky, and if you do the hard grief work and process through it and talk about it, and go through counseling and things like that, process it in a healthy way, then you can, those changes can be positive.
And speaking of changes, what do you think is the next step for you?
So I would love to continue speaking to widowed people and helping widowed people through loss. I would love to do more speaking engagements. I would love to, things got put on hold for the past couple of years because of COVID and everything. So I was doing book signing events and things like that before the pandemic. So I would love to get back to that. I think we're starting to get to a place now where things are happening again and activities are starting to happen again in person. So that's what I would love to do. I'd love to do like maybe a book tour of some kind, and just kind of see different parts of the country at some point, and bring my book with me, and go to little local bookstores and places, and do a book tour. I think that would be great. Book signing events and speaking engagements and things like that.
When it comes to speaking engagements, what else do you think you could convey to your audience?
So I think the main thing is, when you're going through any kind of tragedy or trauma of any kind, doesn't have to be the death of a loved one, but there's many things that are traumatic for people, or any kind of just drastic life change. The message would be that there's hope, and that how you feel today is not how you're going to feel tomorrow, or the next day, or 3 months from now, or 5 years from now. There's always shifts, there's always changes, and you have to just hang in there, and you have to keep going, and you have to trust in the process of working through your feelings, working through your emotions. And because the reason you have to do that is because you have to shift them into a new place. Otherwise they stay stuck in that same place. They stay stuck on that trauma, whatever that trauma is that you went through. Your emotions surrounding that stay stuck in that one day, or in that terrible time that trauma happened. And unless you process through them and talk about them and start to figure out those emotions behind that trauma, you're going to stay there, forever. And when you do that, it's almost impossible to live, so that's why it's so important to process through everything and to do that in a healthy way, because on the other side of that hard work is a life, and a good life, a one that you can create for yourself, and one that is completely up to you, how you live that life and what you want to be, who you want to be, and with something like loss and trauma, but loss specifically, it changes you so much that, you don't want to waste any time. I mean, once you've been through the sudden loss of the person you love, you pretty much know anything can change in a split second. And so you're walking through life with that knowledge, and it changes everything. It changes how you see the world.
Okay. Well, this has been an excellent interview. Are there any final words you'd like to say to the audience?
If you are struggling through something, and you feel like you can't make it one more day, please just keep trying, and please just trust that you will get through it. Reach out to somebody, reach out to anybody, even if it's just online and you don't feel like seeing someone in person, that's fine. But reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, type to somebody. If that's all you can muster up the energy to do, that's fine. It will get better, and it will get different. And you don't have to let go of the person that that died. All you have to do is carry them forward with you, and it's your choice how you want to do that.
All right. Thank you again. And I
Thank
would just,
you.
yes, of course. It's my privilege. It's my privilege.
This was
And
fun.
exactly, it was. And I would just like to give a brief shout out to some of my sponsors right now. First of all, a special thanks to the Six Figure University. They're a very important group of people. They're focused on pushing a message out because one's an engineer, one's a salonist, and they're both working hard on helping to empower people and grow people's lives. The next sponsor that I've got is another person named Dark Joseph Ravine. He's a great man. He is focused on taking people out of the darkness, out of that dark ravine, and bringing out a life of positivity. This is also what grief is focused on too, taking them out of that ravine and making them also very positive as well. And then the final person I'd like to speak about is Judy Ryan. She is basically an extreme HR specialist going in to help businesses, empower businesses, and repair business work structure to give us a better community with better businesses. I am Jimbo Paris. This is the Jimbo Paris Show. Thank you again, Mrs. Lynn.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Jimbo Paris Show.